Please give a very, very warm welcome to Beth Kracklauer. Well, it begins in the first restaurant where I ever worked in my life, which was a very elegant Houlihan's in a mall in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was a teenager and I was hired as a hostess. And you know, if you've ever been to a place like that, you know that people coming in there expect to be greeted with like an absolute tsunami of friendliness. Hey, how you folks doing tonight? Let's get you some menus and get you over to a table. Start you having a good time, huh? And I knew that was expected of me going into the job, but when it came time to actually do it, I was paralyzed. I was like plunged into such deep existential nausea that I was completely debilitated, and therefore was basically a total asshole to the customers. I couldn't smile at them, I couldn't chit chat with them. It was an untenable situation that basically ended very quickly. But it was not the end of my restaurant career, not my end of my front of house career, which, not actually naturally being an extrovert, I probably should have packed it in right then. But I didn't. I kept on trying. And I did a little better as a waitress because I had this kind of air of brisk efficiency that people seemed to like. But I was never great. I was never really great. And then there was this just seismic change in my life. And I moved to England. And I was going there for graduate school. And, tuition was covered. I had like an assistantship, but I needed something to live on. And since I spent all my money basically getting to England, I had to very quickly get a job. And I did, at a pub. And, it was not, in case you're thinking this was some kind of like ye old quaint situation, this was like a squat, mean little modern structure. The inside was no more charming. And it's a very utilitarian place. And something I learned very quickly working there was that English people are dicks. And the other thing I learned, to my surprise, is that I love them for it. I totally love them for it. I just come from this place that's like the epicenter of nice. And to suddenly be confronted at every turn with just unvarnished dickishness. It was thrilling, it was exhilarating. I mean, I didn't have to pretend to like anyone I didn't like. They certainly were pretending to like me. So in the workplace, this was incredibly liberating. Someone coming in there was just like coming in, they wanted their pint of bitter and their steak and kidney pie. They wanted nothing more from me. They didn't want a warm welcome. They didn't want me to pretend to be their friend. It was awesome. I finally found a place where I could actually maybe succeed. And so the front of house problem was taken care of. But at this place, I had to do various jobs. I was a waitress sometimes, I was a bartender sometimes, and sometimes I worked in the kitchen. The kitchen was a different story. When I first got there, I was hired by my boss, my manager, Steve. And Steve, my before-job training, my entire culinary training basically consisted of me and Steve standing in front of the deep fryer. He slid a frozen cod fillet into the oil and said, basically, when it floats, it's done. And I was like, okay, got it. But obviously I had a lot more to learn on the job, and it became clear very quickly that the two people I was going to learn that from were the two women who were really in charge there. They were the cooks in the kitchen, Sally and Sue. Sally and Sue, unlike the rest of the jag-offs working there like me, were actual professionals. They were cooks, and they were good at what they did. And so they were, how do you explain it? They were tough, and they were funny, and they were hyper-competent, and I thought they were so cool. And, my heart kind of goes out to the 24-year-old that I was, because I so desperately wanted them to like me. And not only that, I wanted them to think that I was okay. Which, I showed up there on my first day, I'm dressed all in black and touching my volume of Foucault. And they were totally great. Another dilettante, awesome. And so, they weren't that into me at first, I will say. They were pretty caustic. They thought I was pretty much a jerk. And so I really made it my mission to earn their respect. I worked very hard. I did everything that they told me to do, and I watched them so closely. And, you know, they really were good at what they did. They've been working in that little kitchen together for years. And like during the lunchtime rush, which was like the busiest time of the day, it was incredibly hectic. They were so fluid, they were totally unflappable, they moved around each other, they complimented each other, they handed things off to each other. I just was awed by it, I really was, and I watched very closely, and over time I got a little bit better, and I eventually even got to the place where I could kind of anticipate what they needed, a little bit. And, you know, I think that they started to be like, okay, maybe she's okay. And only then was it revealed that there was another level, another test I had to pass. And that was basically, in order to really become their friend, I had to prove my solidarity with them against Steve. They hated Steve. They worked there forever, and he'd like come in, he had all these big ideas, like Mexican theme nights, which they of course were like completely disdainful of. I mean, this is a guy who pronounced it jalapeno. He's made that Mexican theme night, and so Sue and Sally just detested him and had utter disdain for him, and tried to undermine him at every turn. And so I had to show that I too was with them against him. And there were various kind of little tests I had to pass. One of them is Steve's cardinal rule was no drinking on the job. I guess the last manager had been lax about it. He didn't want us drinking up all his profits. So, you know, I guess I kind of understood. Sally and Sue were like constantly plying me with beer throughout the shift. I would show up in the morning to help them prep for the lunch shift, and 9:30 I would get there. You know, I was young, I was going out, I was invariably hungover, and immediately they would shove a mug full of Guinness at me, and I'd be like, I wouldn't have eaten anything that day. I'd be kind of like, oh, God. Okay, but there was no pouring it down the sink. They were standing there waiting for me to drink it. Prove my loyalty. So I did it. You know, it was obviously what was going on was like a little bit of mild hazing, and if I'd had more self-esteem and confidence, shred of pride, I wouldn't have done it, but I did it, and I really wanted them to like me. So basically I became their minion, and you know, anytime, say, Steve was shut up in his office with his boss having a meeting, I'd be the one they send over to like eavesdrop and report back to them. If any prank was being done on Steve, I'd be the one that like would distract him while, you know, whatever was going on. So finally, I thought, like maybe we're kind of friends now. We were hanging out after our shifts. Sue and Sally were confiding things in me. I was kind of like, I don't want to jump the gun, but maybe we're friends. But I didn't really have confirmation until it was time for me to leave. And I was going back to the States, and I found out that Sue and Sally were planning a going away party for me. And I was just like, I've made it! They like me! It was a huge moment of triumph. And then I got to the going away party, which was pub crawl, and it very quickly became clear that what it really was an evening-long ritual humiliation of me. I mean, there were things tied in my hair, some kind of game was played, I don't remember the particulars, I don't want to, but it involved drawing all over my face, sitting around public, but you know, I just had to decide in that moment I was taking this thing all the way to the end, and I was still going to be a good sport, and I was not going to be beaten down by this, and I was going to show them that I was as tough as they were, and I could give it back as good as I got. And, you know, because the fact is, that was their way of showing affection. Their fucked up English way of showing affection. And you know, I remember sometime during the night going into the bathroom and just looking at like what a mess I was, what a total ridiculous joke of a person I was. And I was kind of like, yeah, English people are dicks.